Well, as we just wrapped up Women's Month this August, South African Airways Women's Month assigned a historic all-woman crew to fly a scheduled flight to Sao Paolo, Brazil. SAA has 69 female pilots, 114 aircraft technicians, and females make up 45% of the global airline's workforce. Well, our Desiree, Chauke and Vanessa Langa accompanied the crew on the successful intercontinental flight. Let's take a look.
Welcome once again to our all-female crew-operated flight to Brazil. And as we speak to you right now, we're in the cockpit. What's the flight number?
It's SAA 222 to Sao Paulo.
So ladies, when we spoke earlier, we were preparing our viewers for this, and now we're in the cockpit. It feels like it's moving a bit, is it?
They're loading the aircraft at the moment. They're putting containers into the aircraft, and it sometimes causes movement.
So please talk to me, or talk to our viewers, talk us through this room that we're in. What is it? What happens in here? And all of that, Katuti.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to be flying the leg to Sao Paulo. Captain says I should do that. Anyway, so I've programmed the computer, which is down here. That's got the routing in there, the latitudes and the longitudes and all the points that we're flying to and the altitudes that we're going to climb to. And we've set up the radios over here, and we've checked. These are all our technical systems. Thanks very much. And we've checked that there's nothing wrong with them. And so when we are done with all that, now we're still busy refueling the aircraft. We have decided we're going to need about 64.5 tons to go all the way there.
There's a fuel.
Yes,
fuel, yes.
That's correct. Yeah, sorry. And after that, we'll be doing some briefings to each other. So we're just going to make sure what we're going to do after takeoff, what path we're going to follow, and in case of an emergency, how we're going to react. So the briefings will come a bit later, now that all the programming has been done.
Fantastic. I get how you think we know some of the technical stuff you're talking about. Captain, what do we do from here?
Well, as Anna-Marie said, once we finish preparing the cockpits and getting ourselves fully briefed, and we read checklists, that's also just to make sure there's been no distractions on the way. And then once all the passengers on board, doors are closed, and the cabin crew will start briefing the passengers. And then we will start the engines. We'll push the aircraft back. We'll talk to air traffic control. They'll clear us for pushback. We'll start the engines on the pushback. And then we'll do various checks after we start the aircraft. We taxi out then to the holding point of the runway, which is the departure point of the runway. We do more checks on the taxi. We read more checklists. We read checklists basically at every phase of flight, just to make sure that everything is on track, that all the procedures have been followed.
Besides being an all-woman crew, how important is it that you can get a flight off and get it to actually arrive at its destination?
Look, we all get the same kind of training. So just because we are ladies, it doesn't mean that we get, an easier way of doing things. So because she's a captain, if you look at another male who's a captain, they've trained equally the same. So whatever she goes through in the simulator, the next captain has gone through in the simulator. Whatever she's gone through, whatever I've gone through in the simulator, that's the exact same training that we go through. So for us, it's a normal day. We do things exactly the same way that I'll do if it was a male captain sitting in there. So there's nothing different because the training is exactly the same.
Almost like in my job when I've met my deadline.
Yes, exactly like that.
Now, most of our viewers, I imagine, have never been into a cockpit. Can you please talk us through the gadgets? What do you push to take off? What happens? I'm awed.
Well, as Anna-Marie said, here are technical systems, and these we mainly deal with before start. Okay, then when we start engines, we have these little buttons. So my aunt asked me, doesn't an airplane have a key? I said, no, an airplane doesn't have a key. We start the engines with these little levers here.
Okay.
And these are the thrust levers. So it's basically like the accelerator in your car. And then we make these go forward, advance these thrust levers, and that spools up the engines. And then because this is an Airbus, it doesn't have a control column, the old-fashioned column, but we have here on the side, we have a side stick. and this operates in the same way.
We see that on TV a lot.
Go up, yes, and you know, if you want to turn to the right, you put the side stick to the right. And this is the Airbus way of doing things. The Boeings had the big control column.
You mentioned earlier in our interview the fact that this is one of the newest type of airplanes. What separates it from other airplanes?
Well, this is the newest in the airline, in our airline, in SAA per se. So it's got, you'll see the service at the back is different. You'll see the seating is different. But here up front, it's not much different to the other Airbus 330-200 that we have. That is it's a bit older.
Thank you so much for making the time to talk to us, Ambassador. We're here at the invitation of the South African Airways in terms of celebrating the women within their organization and how that organization values women development. But what's the role of organizations such as SAA in terms of the advancement of your work?
First, let us be appreciative of this commendable decision by SAA to bring SAA with an all-women crew in this August month of the women in South Africa, but above all in this Nelson Mandela centenary year. I think it augurs well for our relations in Brazil. South African Airways is playing a very important role in our relations. Since January to June this year, tourism by Brazilians and South Americans has increased by over 48% to South Africa. Previously, Brazilians were more inward looking. They are looking to more holiday destinations outside of the north, and they are going in droves to South Africa. For more than 48% in 6 months is tremendous.
What has been the driver of that growth?
It has been the work of SA Tourism, the work of our embassy here, an increasing conversation around BRICS and IPSA group, the India, Brazil, South Africa regional grouping. There has been a more concerted effort in the past 3 years to take the relationship between Brazil and South Africa out of the boardroom to the public, people-to-people cooperation.
We're in Sao Paulo and you traveled all the way from Brasilia to come and be part of this event. Why is it important for you?
It is because the event as organized by SAA it is most commendable that we have our airline not only transporting passengers, but that is taking to the top shelf the issue of gender parity, the issue of women's empowerment, the issue of making sure that the understanding of the role of women in society is not just a South African matter, it's a global matter.
You're talking about issues that are important to the South African discourse, and one of those is the issue of land. It's actually in the news today with the US president coming out and making pronouncements, true or not, about that development. Brazil is one of those countries that have found a way to talk to the issue of land distribution and how it's used. How are you having those conversations with your counterparts here?
Well, let me first start by saying that I will not be commenting on the views of President Trump. I think our government has responded appropriately to it. But with regards to the land issue, a conversation that has been handled most responsibly in the Republic, public hearings and so on, the issue that is important for me is, yes, land redistribution, and then what? This is where Brazil comes in. Brazil was able to use agriculture to take out millions of people from the poverty line to the middle class. They managed to not just focus on commercial agriculture, but on family agriculture, on the emerging farmers. And that is the biggest challenge for South Africa. And I want our country to learn a lot from how they managed to take out so many people from the poverty line to the middle class, and that cooperation will be very helpful to us.
South Africa recently held BRICS 10, and Brazil was part of the participants in that event. What are some of the things that you were able to take away from the Joburg Agreement in terms of how South Africa and Brazil can take their relationship forward?
The most important thing for me is that the globe now has a different view to the established view of the world order. I think it introduces stability in global matters, in global conversations, that a large part of the globe is involved in this conversation. It is not just the established institutions that we are used to. I think that is an important win. But importantly, the BRICS Bank, which was actually established in Fortaleza, which is the northern east state of Brazil, will be looking into certain projects, not in BRICS in general, but with regards to Brazil and South Africa. And I think that is an important win. I think South Africa hosted an amazing summit, and we will be handing over to Brazil next year, which I think will go further to cement the relations between our two countries.
Tell us about those relations. Is the government of Mr. Temer amiable to South Africa?
Oh yes, oh yes. Since 1994, South Africa and Brazil have had very, very strong bilateral relations.
But there have been changes in government.
There have been changes in government. Look, Brazil has experienced many political difficulties in the past 2 or 3 years, but Brazil will be having elections in October. And it doesn't matter who wins the elections, state to state, government to government relations will continue. And we are narrowing down a shopping list of our relations. We are focused on science and technology. You know, they have got a whole lot of experience in and around energy issues. We are talking about agriculture, as I indicated earlier.
There's also that issue of a deficit in trade. How are we going to be able to bring that to balance?
Both Brazil and South Africa need to be more innovative and creative in the economic relations between the two countries. I think both of us have not been, but there has been a spirit amongst us to say, let us not just talk in general terms. Let us find those issues that are important. For instance, the conversation I'm having them is about tariffs in and around wine. We need to get South African wine in Brazil, but we need a solution that is a win-win solution. Maybe we should be discussing how some of their meat products can have less tariffs in South Africa and wine less tariffs in Brazil.
Ambassador Mashinjong, we're time tied, so we're going to have to leave it here, but thank you so much for
Thank you very much for having me.